Do you remember in 2022 when on the back of the institution of the new rules and regs, everybody was like, no, they haven't worked, these cars can't race, and then we got to Silverstone and all of a sudden it was through goes Hamilton. Shez, unless we forget that there's something very fundamental that Ferrari need to tinker with to sort out that car, and that's race pace, right? It was never a slow car, it hasn't been for the past 24 months, but it's a tyre eater.
This is the McDonald's Formula One team, because the way the red and the yellow and the white just kind of combine together, once you see that and you get that image in your head, you just can't get it out.
I'll never forget, was it a couple of years ago they launched that Ferrari and it was a darker red and it had the highlight, the carbon fibre highlights. I was like, mate, just keep this livery. Karen Chandert now, Mark Hughes has written an article that, again, a lot of people questioned the wording. Was he really 2 seconds faster than everybody else on the F2 grid, as Mark Hughes alluded to in his article? There's a lot of hype around this chap. Baxty, are you buying or selling Kimi Antonelli being the next Max Verstappen? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown. With me as always, my co-host, my brethren, Shez and Baxty. How are we doing, chaps? It doesn't matter how you're doing. I had to do it on the week that the Rocks come back and it's Roman Reigns and it's Cody Rhodes and it's all kicking off in WWE. But we're not talking wrestling today. No kayfabe or shoots or works. We've got to talk some F1 and it is livery season, fellas. Today's latest news is that Ferrari have launched a car. Baxty, I'm coming to you first, sir. What did you make of said launch?
Didn't like it at all. I'll tell you what, I really want to shout out friend of the show, Rory, because he kind of summed it up perfectly for me when he said, this is the McDonald's Formula One team, because the way the red and the yellow and the white just kind of combine together, once you see that and you get that image in your head, you just can't get it out. I cannot believe I live in a world where I'm looking at a Ferrari livery and going, don't like it. Like, it's crazy to me. I just feel like those yellow. If it was just the white lines, I wouldn't have an issue. But it's the yellow lines I've got. I know yellow's the in-house color of Ferrari and it's part of the brand, but for some reason, with that shade of red, it just doesn't work as well for me. I can't really talk to you about the technical stuff, but the livery to me does not look particularly nice.
They could have made it look nice at least, couldn't they, Shez, surely? Or tell me that you're a fan, bruv. Which of them is it?
Oh yeah, I'm loving it. But am I? Not really. No, it's a pretty, I don't know. I feel like Ferrari have been on quite a nice run of liveries over the last couple of seasons, and for some reason this year, maybe Shell are paying them a bit more. I don't know, and that's why they've decided to put a bit more yellow into the livery. But yeah, if you're going to put yellow next to bright red, it's always going to look a bit McDonald's, isn't it? And yeah, the overall cohesiveness doesn't look quite as nice as it has done over the last couple of seasons. The last couple of seasons have been really, really simple, tight, red and black. Love that, but they haven't really done that this season. Don't like it that much. I'm with Baxty.
It's a bit of a mishmash of a design, isn't it? And again, the colours, I'll never forget. Was it a couple of years ago they launched that Ferrari and it was a darker red and it had the highlight, the carbon fibre highlights. I was like, mate, just keep this livery ad infinitum. It was perfect. And then you come and see this. I'm not normally a livery guy. I know Tomo likes to get friend of the channel also, and shout out to Rory Legend, but friend of the channel in addition, Tomo always gets a bit het up on the fonts of the thing, and I'm like, oh Tomo, behave yourself. But the fonts on this one, do this look like a play thing, chaps? I'm just like, nah, they need to sort that out before Sir Lewis gets in there next year, I'll tell you that much. More pertinently though, Baxty, do you reckon, I know you said that you don't pay attention to the bits and the bloody Venturi and the wings and what's changed into year, but do you reckon it will be fast? Because that's the question what we need to ask, right?
I mean, if they are carrying on with the momentum from last year, then certainly it will be quick. I mean, I had to put this on social media earlier. What we are seeing right now is the base version of the car. That car will not go to testing. They will put things on that car. They will change things around. They'll test parts out. That's the whole point of testing. So I think it's quite hard to tell. I think the suspension, from what I understand about suspension, I don't think they've made the changes that I think people thought they might make. Go from, I can't remember whether it's push rod to pull rod or the other way around, but they've kind of stuck with what they had. And there's technical analysts who are much more knowledgeable than me, like Gary Anderson, kind of going, "Oh, not sure about this." But we'll just have to see. We'll have to see. We've still got 3 cars to see, so 2 technically after today. So yeah, we'll need to see how it all plays out, and basically we won't know until qualifying, I think, on Friday in Bahrain, because I think Bahrain's a Saturday race this year, I believe.
It is indeed. Set your calendars. I keep seeing the first 2 races are Saturday. Lest we forget, can't be turning up on Sunday and then having missed the first 2 races of this. That actually is something that I will probably do, even though I've said it on a podcast now. Beware. Shez, is that SF24 going to be a contender for this year or now?
I think my answer is fairly in line with what Baxty just said. I'm not a technical guy. I think I've got a very, very basic understanding of what a car does, but based on momentum, based on the way that Ferrari seemed to understand their car towards the end of last season, you'd expect them to come out with a car that can do the business. And traditionally Ferrari have not been a team that innovate a lot. They tend to have a fairly conventional car that takes the best bits of whatever's on trend at that time. This is traditionally anyway, and they tend to do it quite well. So they, year on year, have a fairly consistent car that does pretty well, without ever being a sort of dominant machine. And I wonder if that's what's going to happen again this season. Whether that's going to be enough for them to challenge, I don't know. I guess one of the things that's come out of one of the launches, I think Dan Fallows had said it, that there is a natural convergence of all of everyone's concepts, and that's always going to happen when a car has been as dominant as the RB19 has. And you can kind of see it through all of these launches that everyone's now doing the downwash, everyone's doing the sort of slightly aggressively undercut side pods. But the important thing here, that I think everyone that's technically minded is saying, is that the important bits are underneath the car, the stuff that you can't see, which is distinct from what it was a few years ago.
It's a fair shout, Shez, unless we forget that there's something very fundamental that Ferrari need to tinker with to sort out that car, and that's race pace, right? It was never a slow car. It hasn't been for the past 24 months, but it's a tyre eater. Never works in practice, again, not too dissimilar from the bloody Mercedes, that in theory it had this massively peaky, super narrow performance curve, but in practice they could never access that. I think the key to extracting performance in 2023, 2024 and beyond is having a malleable chassis that works irrespective of ride heights and suspension, because Venturi tunnels, ground effects, that's the very nature of the thing. And so it always felt to me like Ferrari were just like 1 or 2 tinkers away. No, Baxty, surely they've just got to sort that out.
I mean,
I know it makes it sound easy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we don't know. Obviously, Shez has made the perfect point. We don't know what's happening with the floor. That's the key area here, and we know that Red Bull's floor is certainly on the RB19 was incredibly well developed, more developed than anyone else's. And you just hope that perhaps those pictures from Monaco, when Sergio Perez, yeeted his car into the barriers, that they took nice photos and could learn from that and understand it and maybe try and progress it.
Learn, Baxty. When you say learn, you mean plagiarize and or copy, surely?
Yeah, but they still need to learn, because we've seen this with Racing Point / Aston Martin over the years, that they're very good at copying a car, but they may not necessarily understand the concept behind it. We saw that with last year, where they made no progress during the season and allowed Mercedes and Ferrari and McLaren to really catch them up. A team that really should have got maybe P2 or P3 in the Constructors' Championship, ended up P5. Yeah, I'm surprised some heads didn't roll in that situation because Papa Stroll, we know, is ruthless in that regard. And the Racing Point was consistently quick, but it was kind of like it was just kind of there basically. Did get the race win in the end thanks to some Mercedes bungling of pit stops. But yeah, I think. Look, as I said, we still got a few cars to see. I'm a Mercedes fan. I'm interested about tomorrow. I'm sure we'll get to it. I'm interested to see what they bring. But yeah, look, if Ferrari have got two very capable drivers, and if they can solidify their position, I don't see any reason why they can't at least minimum get P2. Minimum. Can they challenge Red Bull? It's a long shot. It's a real long shot. Over the course of a season, it's a long shot.
Baxty, did I hear you just say that Ferrari have two very capable drivers? I would argue that they have one. But
here we go. Here we go.
God. How has it started this early?
He has a name, and that man's name is Carlos Sainz. But I digress. Shez, put some respect on Charles Leclerc's name, Cameron. How dare you? Shez, talk to me about Mercedes. What are you looking to see from them tomorrow as far as their design? Got to have some serious side pods on it, haven't you?
I mean, I'm hoping that it's just going to be two side pods and a seat. It doesn't need anything else, really.
Mate, that would probably have been better than what they've had for the past 2 years. Just side pods.
No, I think.
Talk to me, Shez, about, have you seen the... Sorry to interrupt you, but have you seen the mock-up? Posted on the group, right? Is that the car, bruv? Or is that fake?
As in the one that Tomo sort of photoshopped and gave us a good look at. I mean, I don't know. I think what Baxty said is right. Like, what you see on launch day isn't what you're going to see on the track. And actually, in this situation for that car, what you said earlier about the suspension is probably the most important thing. And we've had the best clue as to what Mercedes rear suspension is going to be like, because we've just seen what Aston Martin's car looks like, and they're sharing the same gearbox. I guess it's important to emphasize that, unlike in a road car, where the suspension is just there to do the suspending, in a Formula One car, it serves two purposes. One, to create the mechanical platform for the car, but also to have a input into the aerodynamics of the car as well. So the pull rod, push rod, I mean, these are terms that people will have heard of, but the implication of it is not necessarily how well it suspends the car, but more to do with how easily it allows air to flow to the rear, around the rear of the car, and feed the most important part of the aerodynamics of the car, which is the diffuser, and make that work as well as possible. And it looks like Aston have gone from a pull rod arrangement, where if you look at the car, there's two wishbones. There's a wishbone at the top and a wishbone at the bottom, and then there's a strut that goes either that way, and that's a pull rod, or it goes that way, which is a push rod, depending on which side of the car you're sitting on. And that has implications on the aerodynamics and how the air is fed to the diffuser. And I think Mercedes are pinning some of their hopes, at least, on that being a big change for them, and allowing them to do exactly what you said from a suspending point of view, allowing the car to have a more stable platform. I think somebody talked about, from that point of view, something called anti-squat. So it means that when the car accelerates, rather than doing that, it stays flat, which allows the aerodynamics to do what they need to do. And that's something that Mercedes have struggled with for the past 2 seasons. So that's the bit I think that everybody's going to be looking at on the Mercedes. The side pods are going to be the big ticket item that everyone's going to comment on, but actually it's the rear suspension that's going to be the thing that I think is going to make the difference for that car this season. Sorry for the long-winded answer.
The old push rods at the rear, and I don't hate that, because obviously Lewis Hamilton has been moaning about instability at the rear, an unstable platform at apex, and again, that's what he trades off, right? Finally, it looks like they've at least, maybe not fixed it, but at least taken measures to address those issues, and you can't pay that, right? You can't wish for more than that. You've got to be shooting your gun in the right direction. And finally, after a 24-month lead time, it appears that Mercedes have done that. Let's see what comes out tomorrow. Red Bull, chaps, very quickly, because I'm tired of liveries already. Something about liveries, I don't know. It just feels like I feel like I'm wasting my life talking about liveries. I thought I'd be dialed in, and I thought I'd be watching each and every single one of them live, but I haven't been. Barely. You guys were talking on the old group today about Ferrari and whatever. I'd pretty much forgotten that it was a thing. But talk to me about the shots of Red Bull during their shakedown, Baxty, because again, I was dialed into that a little bit. Not much difference between, if indeed that's this year's car, not much difference aesthetically between the RB20 and RB19. What did you make of that, Baxty?
Oh, delivery was never going to change. This is Red Bull. I mean, if they did something different, it would be a surprise. We can get bored of it, but and they'll have carbon fiber, but they're just clever at hiding it. I think what actually interested me the most about Red Bull, those pictures that we saw, was they seem to have copied from Mercedes. The kind of dual cannon at the back that Mercedes had on their, when they introduced the now Monaco upgrade last year. They seem to put that onto their car, and perhaps Adrian Newey wasn't just fixing the Mercedes in his mind for fun. He was actually looking at that car and going, that's not a bad idea, actually. Red Bull also looked like they didn't have particularly massive side pods either. I wonder if they might try and do... I mean, that's just a side-on image. It's really hard to tell. So, and again, my complete noddy knowledge of Formula One intricacies about mechanics, but certainly it looked like they had like an aggressive undercut, but also quite a small hole for the air to go into on the side pods. And the mocked up image that we saw from Mercedes as well, to kind of turn your contrast up one, had the same thing. So maybe they've gone down the same route. I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing the car. The Mercedes livery, I will be very surprised if that car is not black, considering that everybody is doing carbon fiber other than Red Bull and Ferrari, and B-carb, and they're V-carb. I'm just going to call them V-carb. Because Mercedes have the excuse and have the, well, not the excuse, but they have the reason to go, well, this is part of our history. No one else has that, and that's great about Mercedes. They can just go, yeah, we can pick all our paint off. It's no problem. It's part of our heritage. So I'm fully expecting that car to be almost entirely carbon fiber with basically paint to put the sponsors on.
Wow. And it will look good again, at least then. It will look good. But
the W14 aesthetically was a sexy car, but
it looked incredible.
It was trash.
Yeah. Each and every. But fast cars always look sexy, right? And as soon as you see that car get a bit slower and realise it's a flawed design philosophy, it didn't look so sexy, eh? I want to talk about Kimi Antonelli, but very quickly, chaps. I want to give some props to Silverstone, extended for another 10 years, fellas. And you guys know that I'm partial to the greatest race circuit in the whole of the world. Shez, I will come to you first, bruv. How ecstatic are you that Silverstone has been extended on the F1 calendar to 2034?
Oh yeah, it's good. I'm glad that they're going back to that they're staying at Silverstone and not doing a Northampton street circuit, because that would suck. Yeah, I love Silverstone. Like, the atmosphere there is brilliant. Like the stands are always absolutely rammed. The campsites are always rammed. The parking's like awful, but who cares? And in terms of a circuit, look, for me, it combines the best things of a driver's challenge and Maggots, Beckett's, seeing a car going through that sequence of corners is just something else. And even, going through Cops, that direction change, it's just beautiful to watch. But the fact that they're able to combine that with a track that allows close racing and overtaking and storyline, it is the perfect combination. And I'm not just saying that because I'm British and it's my home circuit. It is genuinely a classic for all of the right reasons. Really good track.
Very well said, Sir Baxty. Do you remember in 2022 when on the back of the institution of the new rules and regs, everybody was like, no, they haven't worked. These cars can't race. And then we got to Silverstone and all of a sudden it was through goes Hamilton. Bro, Baxty, talk to me about your relationship with Silverstone and what you think about it remaining on the calendar for another 10 years.
I'm a great lover of history. Like my fandom of Formula One is rooted in its history and its stats and everything else and the stories that play out in front of you. And there's been some amazing stories that have played out at Silverstone. I mean, one of my favorites was 2010. Not bad for a number 2 driver from Mark Webber, just with a suboptimal front wing and just hammered Vettel in the race after the qualifying slight the day before. And you get it always delivers. Like there's always something happening at Silverstone, be it we're banning the blown diffuser for one race or that happened at Silverstone. That's why Alonso won that race, because he was able to get on top of his Ferrari and not see a Red Bull drive off into the distance, or Raikkonen spinning Hamilton, or that 21, that doesn't ring a bell. I don't think much happened that year, but cue the Maxerati in the comments, but it was attempted murder. Yeah, there's just something always happens, and it's always got an amazing atmosphere. And look, British fans are unashamedly partisan for their drivers, not just Lewis. Like, we love George, we love Lando, we want to see those guys do well. Like seeing Lando on the front row of the grid chasing after Max Verstappen was amazing. It was so good. And then seeing Oscar Piastri as well. Like, we love the fact that we've got McLaren as part of our heritage. And I will never forget when in 2009 they tried to get rid of Silverstone in favour of Donington Park.
Oh, mate.
The kickoff from the fans. And I didn't get it at the time because I was still really green in the sport. And obviously over the years I've come to realise actually this is a really special circuit, wet, dry, doesn't matter. Just so good. And also I have forgotten the ultimate, Lewis Hamilton winning a race on 3 wheels.
Mate, it's a very special place, that track. There is something, and when you drive around there, again, I've never driven in a super fast car, but even in a sports car, if you go there on a track day, it's just, I don't know, it feels biblical each and every single time, the way you've got to sequence the corners, haven't you? It's just, I don't know, it's a very, very special thing, that. And now we find ourselves in a circumstance, I am told reliably, where there are only 7 races that have yet to sign for further than 2025. So running out in 2025, these are the tracks, chaps, and I need you to feed back to me which one of these you can bin. Belgium, Netherlands, Monza, Imola, China, Monaco, Mexico. Which one of those? Because I don't think we're going to keep all of those through 2020 through 2034. Which one of those are you prepared to drop, Shez? Come to you first, bro.
You have to try and do this without offending anyone. I have to say, out of the easy one to drop, I think, is probably going to be China. But I think I would be upset if there wasn't a race in China, given how big the market is and the fact that we've now got a Chinese driver on the grid. So, and I was quite liked. I was quite liked the Chinese track. It was quite fun. I have to say, out of the ones that you've just said, I'm going to say Mexico. I've never really connected with that track. Yeah, I understand.
It has its moments, though, bro. I think it has had its moments. It wasn't bad in 21 as a differentiator. It does have its moments.
Well, I mean, it is a track where every time we've gone there, pretty much someone's driven off into the distance, and most of the dramas happen behind them. And despite the fact that there's a massive straight, because it's so high up, and drag is such an issue, you still don't get the sort of the overtaking moves that you'd think you were going to get into the first corner. There's just something about the place that I haven't connected with. Maybe that's just me, but out of the ones that you've said, that's probably the one.
How very dare you, Shez.
Yeah, I had to pick one of them.
Fair. Baxty, talk to me. Which one of those are you binning off?
Oh, I don't want to get rid of any of them. I'm with Shez. I really like China. I think it's a great circuit, and it's great that it's coming back this year after so long away. I like Mexico. I know it's not always the best racing, but it's always an amazing atmosphere there, and I think that will continue after Checo's gone as well. I don't think that's been entirely made by him, and we've had moments there, like Lewis won back-to-back championships there, and had to do it the hard way as well. I'm going to have to be sacrilegious here and probably say Imola.
I don't hate
I mean, I like Imola, but it's not the greatest racing circuit in the actual racing circuit. Driving circuit, I think it's incredible. But yes, it's got the history, but there was a reason it disappeared for a long time. And it was great to have it back. And I mean, maybe if they alternated it between that and Mugello, kind of that whole kind of hybrid model that they had with Germany for a while, kind of alternating between tracks, and maybe keep Monza has to stay, but if you want a second Italian race, maybe flick it between Mugello and Imola, because Mugello is a great circuit. I really want to see them go back. I know money's always an issue, but Mugello was amazing.
Permission to blaspheme for a second?
Can
we just sack off Monza? I am going to say Monza. Can we just sack off Monza, chaps? I mean, what's the brilliant track and all that, but do you know what I mean? It's
I wouldn't have minded if you said Monaco, man, but Monza?
No. I've done a 180 on Monaco. If you'd caught me 18 months ago, Baxty, Monaco might have been my selection to bin off.
I don't want to lose Monaco because of its history, and that's it.
You can't.
It sucks as a racing track.
Agreed, but there's too much heritage and prestige to offset that sucking as a racetrack, right?
And there isn't at Monza.
It more than offsets. No, there's history at Monza, but I think that's as far as a setup for really, really good racing. It's not, is it? It's a setup for a bloody procession.
I mean, I'm not the biggest Zandvoort fan, but I think Zandvoort has its place.
Zandvoort makes for good racing,
and it makes for good racing. Yeah, and I think unfortunately with Zandvoort, I think as soon as Max retires, that race is gone. Unless there's another Dutch driver coming through that inspires the same level of support. But as long as Max is there, Zandvoort exists. And
even then, Maxi, the chat is that potentially because Belgium, Spa, and Netherlands are so close to each other that they might alternate years. 1 year Spa, 1 year Netherlands.
No, we can't lose Spa.
No, you can't lose Spa.
Spa would be sacrilege, but Monza, I don't know.
We had a year without Montreal, and that was weird. Not having Montreal for a year was just odd. It's why are we not going to Montreal?
Yeah, I don't know. We shall see.
I think you have to go to Monza though. Just visit the place.
No, you don't.
But on a Grand Prix weekend, especially at the end of the race when you've had that iconic podium with all of the Tifosi sitting underneath it, especially if there's been a Ferrari win, mate, the atmosphere is magic, and the fact that you can then walk around. You're talking about heritage. You can walk around the old banking onto the new circuit. Man, and the Royal Park, especially when there were trees there, you'd walk around the trees while they were testing. You just hear the cars driving around in the background, just like some distant echo. But if you can feel the history there, it's palpable. And okay, I'm talking about it like someone has been there, but people that when you get to go, and that's what a lot of people that watch Formula One are going to do at some point. That's an atmosphere you don't want to lose. And I don't think the racing is. I don't think you can talk about the history of Monaco and say that the racing is bad there, and then say that you're happy to lose the history of Monza because the racing isn't good there. That doesn't. Those two things don't marry up for me.
They don't square. I just think it's the race. Okay, so the racing is probably equally bad, probably worse at Monaco, but the prestige is so much more. That's why I say it's an offset. The prestige more than offsets the poor racing. I get the atmosphere and I take it back. I understand why you say visit Monza, especially with bloody Lewis Hamilton going there next year. Might not be the time to take off Monza, Cameron. Timing is poor. But as far as I don't think the racing that we get there, I think the poor racing offsets the heritage. I think it's more than the heritage and the atmosphere and even the bloody infrastructure's really poor. There are more reasons if you're doing like a trial balance of a keep or sack off. I think you'll sack off. I think you'll have a longer list as far as Monza's concerned.
But they're spending money on infrastructure there. And they are just like Spa. They've spent money on the place to make it more amenable to people actually going there. And of all the tracks, I feel like Monza's the one that's most the most what's the word? The one that is affected the most by the way that the cars behave. So, if you've got a car that has great ground effects and can go around a corner, but the DRS is not quite as powerful because of that. You're not going to get the slipstreaming that you would have done in the past, and that's been a problem with these cars, right? If you go,
I just think it's all a bit of a. I don't know, bruv. I can't remember. Do you remember when Carlos and Charles? I remember watching that race and like nothing happened. It was just boring and dry up until the end when Carlos and bloody Charles started to have their dalliance. I don't know.
But I remember 2007 where Lewis went down the inside of Kimi Räikkönen, and then 2018 where he dropped Sebastian Vettel at Della Roggia, made him spin, and then chased Raikkonen to then take him on the penultimate lap as well.
I mean, but that's two in like 20 years, Shez. As soon as we start talking about Silverstone by country, and even bloody Monaco, there's like you know what I mean? It's the instances just pop off the page.
I can't really remember an iconic Monaco race. 2019 was an interesting one.
Last year was nuts because of the rain. Last year was incredible at Monaco.
It wasn't a great race though.
It
was tense. It was tense and tactical.
Yeah. And then you get qualifying. You can't bin off Monaco for qualifying alone. The qualifying is chaos, but especially 2023. To bin off Monaco now after the qualify, I would go to Monaco and pay all those bloody thousands of pounds just to see qualifying chaps, and then I'd go home on the bloody. So I would even watch the race. That's the spectacle, and you'll never get anything like that at Monza. Not equivalent. Why is
this the argument, Cameron? Like, we've got all of these tracks that you've just listed. Why are we fighting over whether we keep Monza or Monaco? Like, there's definitely other tracks on that list that should come off higher than that.
I hear you. I think they're probably most at risk though, bro. Being honest. Well, Monaco's probably, they'll keep Monaco, but I think anyway. Maybe
Monaco's been perpetually under threat since I started watching the sport. It's always under threat.
The joke is
until somebody pulls the trigger.
Probably more on monetary grounds than racing, but again, we digress. That surely is F1 in 2024. Chaps, I want to talk to you about this Kimi Antonelli thing as we round third base, because the reports, I can't remember a time when there's been more hype around a driver that young, just now coming into F2, having skipped F3 this year. What do you guys make? Let me open it up to you, Baxty. What do you make of the report? Because there's been Karen Chandert now. Mark Hughes has written an article that, again, a lot of people questioned the wording. Was he really 2 seconds faster than everybody else on the F2 grid, as Mark Hughes alluded to in his article? There's a lot of hype around this chap. Baxty, are you buying or selling Kimi Antonelli being the next Max Verstappen?
I don't like that tag of the next whoever. I like people to be themselves. That's my viewpoint on it. Like, coming from a music world, somebody might say to me, "Oh, you're the next, Pavarotti or something." And no one's ever said that to me. Don't worry. But like, I'd just be like, no, I don't want to be that. I want to be myself and be the best version of myself. Look, Kimi's talent is undeniable. I think it's clear that anyone that's seen him drive and has any know-how about this says this kid is the real deal. I think the last driver I saw this hyped up was probably Charles. And then even then, I think Kimi's got more hype than Charles had. The guy's look. I can give you a motorsport comparison here. I think Marc Marquez, when he was going through the junior ranks in MotoGP, was on a tear, but he did have to spend 2 seasons in Moto2. Now, he could have gone to MotoGP for 2012, but he decided not to, and then won Moto2 in 2012, and then went to Honda, straight into a factory Honda ride for 2013, and ended up winning the championship first time out, which was incredible. And I think Kimi's kind of in that bracket of just this absolutely undeniable talent. Now, does that mean he should get a Mercedes drive? I'm not so sure. I think I'm not saying F1 and MotoGP are comparable because they're 2 completely different sports, 2 completely different skill sets. I just feel like Kimi is very, very young. He's 17 at the moment. He'll be 18 by the time, if he does get to Formula One. There's no guarantee he gets in 25 because he has to deliver in F2. He probably will if he's as talented as they say he is, and I've got every confidence in him to do the job. And I just feel that he probably needs a year or two, no more than that, to be able to learn his craft. I mean, look, Max Verstappen went into a Toro Rosso, did a decent job in his first season, decent rookie season. He impressed people, had good results, didn't set the world on fire particularly, but had a good rookie season. Gets put up to the Red Bull, wins his first race, but then I would say between that promotion to about 2019, Max made mistakes because he was still learning his craft, and he needed that time. Okay, he was making those mistakes in a Red Bull, but he was making those mistakes in a Red Bull that realistically wasn't challenging for the championship, particularly in 17 and 18, where it was all eyes on Mercedes and Ferrari. And Max kind of just went away, ironed out all the mistakes from his game, got himself ready, built up in 2020, and then 21 he was ready to hit the ground running for a championship charge. And I think Kimi just needs a bit of time to develop and hopefully a way out the spotlight, like they did with George Russell. George Russell spent 3 years at the back of the grid honing his craft. Okay, he made quite a few mistakes last year, but he went into that Mercedes and was able to be as good as he was when he went in because he had 3 years grounding with one race with Mercedes under his belt. And I think Kimi needs that, particularly because he is so young. Now, it could be he proves me wrong. And as a Mercedes fan, I would be delighted that he would prove me wrong. But I'm always cautious, but he is undeniable. He will be in a Mercedes at some point. And I have no doubt that he'll probably end up in a Ferrari at some point as well. So, yeah.
Blimey. It does feel like they're trying to pitch him as this force of nature, reminiscent of Lewis circa 2006, Shez, don't you hear all this stuff though? The Karun, the Pusey article, don't you hear all this stuff and just have the skeptical hippo face? Because if he comes and flops, he won't be the first, nor will he be the last, right? Because F1 is a very big pond with very, very big fish in there also, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the arbiter has always been F2. There seems to be quite a direct correlation between winning F2 as a rookie and then doing well in Formula One. I think we've talked about this before, that the exception to the rule is Nico Hulkenberg, and even he is a pretty exceptional driver. But generally, if you win either GP2 or F2 as it is now in your rookie season, it tends to bode well for how well you're going to do in Formula One. And it often doesn't really matter where you start in Formula One, you're still going to do pretty well. And I guess, and the last person that did that was Oscar Piastri. Now, you could argue that Oscar has gone into a team that isn't contending for a championship. But I would say that the intention is key here. McLaren are a team, even in 2023, that intended to win a championship. They went into the season with that mindset. Whether they were actually capable of doing that or not is besides the point. But they're not in the same mold as a V-Carb or a Williams as it currently is, where we're actually, at least part of their remit is to develop drivers. And Oscar did just fine. He compared really well against Lando. Lando obviously had the edge over him over the course of the season, as you would expect a driver with 5 or 6 seasons of Formula One experience under their belt. And that is kind of the environment that if Kimi Antonelli came into a Mercedes seat in 2025 would be coming into. There is already an experienced, fast, talented hand in the other car. And given the trajectory that this rule set has gone on, you kind of expect that Mercedes would be perhaps there or thereabouts, but maybe not contending for a championship. And even if they are, if he's as good as everyone says he is, then he should be able to handle that pressure anyway and not embarrass himself. And that's kind of all he needs to do in that situation, just needs to not embarrass himself. And in terms of the hippo face hype, yeah, I think he's proven himself so far. 4 titles in 2 seasons is pretty impressive, and the way that he's taken those titles is bodes well for the future as well. But the big arbiter is going to be how he does in F2 in 2024, and it sounds like Mercedes has got a backup plan if he doesn't do quite as well as they expect him to.
The good Ferrari driver, right? Carlos Sainz Jr. surely, or Fernando Alonso, depending on who you're listening to. I don't want to have skeptical hippo face, but when I hear so many people beating the drum, it just smacks of confirmation bias to me that everybody wants this dude to be the next Senna or Lewis or Max. And so we're kind of collating the evidence to support that argument. And I don't know, even the wording, even Karun's wording, it's like, well, okay, so he spoke to some engineers in F3 and they said he was the best F3 driver, off the back of a couple of tests. What? How can you even extrapolate such an assumption or conclude? It just sounds like chaos. Although, then on the flip side, chaps, the more people that I speak to, like really reputable sources, talk to me about having seen Kimi Antonelli gap another bloody F2 driver to the tune of two seconds on the sim. So it feels like the hearsay is all pointing in one direction, but yet and still I have skeptical hippo face. Chaps, finally on this as we round third base, Christian Horner, I just want to ask you a very quick yes or no question. Christian Horner was present at the Red Bull Shakedown today. Rumours saying that he's going to be present at the reveal on the 15th. Will Christian Horner, Baxty, still be team principal at Bahrain Race 1 2024? Yes or no?
Honestly, I don't know. Considering the yes, because the investigation is going to take a while, I think, but it could. Personally, I think he should probably just take a step back and let this investigation play out, but he doesn't want to. That's his choice. That's just my opinion. But yes, he will be team principal in Bahrain, I'm fairly certain.
Shez?
Yeah, I agree with Baxty.
Very diplomatic answers there. I think he'll be the team principal for the entirety of 2024 because I think Christian Horner is a fighter and he's lawyered up, and I think he would defend this whole thing to the hilt. But I reckon there's more to this whole circumstance than we're being told. I think it's deeper than face value. But I'm speculating and massively leaning into the rumour mill, which I probably shouldn't do. It's a bit naughty, but we like to talk about all things F1 on this channel and the Shakedown. Chaps, you guys have been legends. We'll see you as always on the next one. For Baxty, for Chezinho. Until next time.